Again, we take a little white, put a little touch of dark sienna in it, maybe the least little touch of black into that one, just so it has some.
He always wore a smile. His voice was as gentle as the breeze through pine trees. To millions, Bob Ross was the calm in the chaos, a man who promised that every mistake was just a happy little accident. But behind the easel and the soothing tones, Bob Ross carried a lifetime of untold stories. Military scars, silent betrayals, lost relationships, and a fame he never asked for. And perhaps the most surprising part, he never made a single dollar from the show that made him a global icon. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? That a man who taught us to paint joy was, in many ways, painting through pain. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you won't miss our new videos. Long before he ever picked up a brush on television, Bob Ross wore a very different uniform. Born in Daytona Beach, Florida in 1942, Ross grew up in Orlando. His father, Jack, was a carpenter, and his mother, Ollie, was a waitress. From his mother, Bob learned a love and respect for wildlife, often caring for injured animals, including armadillos, snakes, and squirrels, a passion that would later surface in his television show. Ross dropped out of high school in the 9th grade and worked with his father as a carpenter. During this time, he lost part of his left index finger in a saw accident, but this did not affect his ability to hold a palette while painting. Seeking stability and the opportunity to see the world, Ross enlisted in the United States Air Force at age 18 in 1961. Due to his height and flat feet, he was assigned to a desk job as a medical records technician. In 1963, he was transferred to Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska, about 25 miles outside of Fairbanks. Having grown up in Florida, Ross had never seen snow or mountains before, but he quickly fell in love with the Alaskan landscape, which would later become a recurring theme in his paintings. Ross spent 20 years in the Air Force, rising to the rank of Master Sergeant. He described himself during this time as the guy who makes you scrub the latrine, the guy who makes you make your bed, the guy who screams at you for being late to work. After retiring in 1981, he vowed never to raise his voice again. While stationed in Alaska, Ross took a painting class at a USO club, marking the first time he studied painting. He found himself frustrated with instructors who focused on abstract concepts and wouldn't teach him how to paint a tree. Around 1975, he discovered a TV show called The Magic of Oil Painting, hosted by German painter Bill Alexander. Alexander used a 16th century painting style called alla prima, or wet on wet, which allowed him to create a painting within 30 minutes. Ross studied and mastered the technique, began painting, and successfully selling Alaskan landscapes that he painted on novelty gold mining pans. Eventually, his income from sales surpassed his military salary. After retiring from the Air Force, Ross returned to Florida and studied painting with Alexander, joining his Alexander Magic Art Supplies company as a traveling salesman and tutor. During this time, he met Annette Kowalski, who had attended one of his sessions in Clearwater, Florida. Kowalski convinced Ross he could succeed on his own. Ross, his wife, Kowalski, and her husband pooled their savings to create his company. The business struggled at first. His trademark permed hairstyle came about as a cost-cutting measure when his regular crew-cut haircuts became too expensive. Ross later confessed that he disliked the hairstyle, but felt he couldn't change it because it was depicted in the company logo. In 1982, a station in Falls Church, Virginia, aired a taping of his art class as a pilot, and 60 PBS stations signed up for the show in the first year. In 1983, PBS station WIPB lured him to Muncie, Indiana, with the promise of creative freedom, and he found a kinship with the staff. He moved home to Florida in 1989, but continued to travel to Muncie every 3 months to tape the show. Ross said he did the show for free and made his income from how-to books, videotapes, and art supplies. He wasn't alone on his journey. In the 1970s, another painter, Bill Alexander, had already brought the wet and wet technique to public TV. Ross was his student, his protege. He dedicated early episodes to the man he called a mentor, but the friendship soured. Bill accused Ross of betrayal, saying, "He is copying me. What bothers me is that he thinks he can do it better." It's hard to picture someone being angry at Bob Ross, but rivalries don't care about reputations. Have you ever had a mentor turn into a rival? Or lost a friend to success? His image, serene and unchanging, became his brand. But that iconic afro, it wasn't his idea. It was a perm, done purely to save on haircuts when money was tight. He hated it, but once it became the logo for his painting business, he was stuck with it for life. A happy little accident, perhaps, but one that made him miserable. That's the thing about symbols. They don't always reflect the truth behind them. And the truth? Ross made nothing from the joy of painting. Despite being the face of one of PBS's most beloved shows, he wasn't paid, not a cent. Public broadcasting didn't fund its talent the way commercial networks did. Ross became famous, but not rich. So how did he survive? Through teaching, selling books, and offering private painting workshops. He even created video lessons, each one a 3-hour deep dive into his peaceful technique. Yet behind the canvas, a different picture was forming. Over 11 years and 403 episodes, Ross painted live 381 times. Each episode featured not just one, but 3 full versions of the same painting. One made before the show, one during, and one afterward for close-up shots. That's over 1,000 paintings. And how many featured people? Just one, a lone cowboy beneath a tree. He didn't like painting people. Maybe they complicated things. Or maybe he just preferred a world where the trees never judged you and the clouds never betrayed. Do you think Bob painted the world as he wished it could be? Today, finding an original Bob Ross is harder than finding a needle in a pine forest. Many were donated to PBS stations and auctioned off. But if you stumble across one now, expect to pay well over $10,000. Still, for many fans, the real value wasn't in the paint. It was in the piece. Bob Ross offered calm in an increasingly loud world. His soothing tone, rhythmic brushstrokes, and whispered encouragement created a feeling that viewers couldn't explain. Years later, scientists would call it ASMR, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, a tingling sensation, deeply calming, often triggered by soft sounds or repetitive motion. Bob Ross was doing it long before anyone had a name for it. Viewers reported falling asleep to his voice, watching him after stressful days, or playing his episodes not to paint, but simply to feel safe. And he welcomed that. Ross once said, "We've gotten letters from people who say they sleep better when the show is on." That wasn't an insult. To him, it was a gift, to offer people rest in a world that rarely slowed down. In that way, his art wasn't just on canvas, it was in the comfort he gave. Incredibly, Ross's influence reached far beyond American homes. In Japan, the joy of painting became a beloved staple, airing on NHK twice a day. Despite being dubbed in Japanese, his warmth transcended the language barrier. Even cultures far removed from American painting traditions embraced his presence. Perhaps kindness really does speak its own language. Back home, Bob's family occasionally joined him on air. His son Steve Ross appeared in over a dozen episodes. With his rock band hairstyle and relaxed confidence, Steve surprised many with his skill. His brushwork was as fluid and precise as his father's. Some thought he might carry on the legacy, but after Bob's passing in 1995, complications arose. The company Bob had co-founded, Bob Ross Inc., was now controlled by business partners, not family. Steve Ross reportedly had a falling out with the organization. Legal rights, control of his father's image, and use of his own name became difficult territory. Steve withdrew from the public eye, choosing instead to paint quietly on his own terms. He wasn't alone. Bob had another son, Morgan, from a previous relationship. Morgan, too, kept a low profile. The Ross family story is one of love, but also loss, of connection, of legacy, of control. Bob's death came swiftly. In 1994, he was diagnosed with lymphoma. The public didn't know. He kept his illness private, refusing to let it cloud the joy he shared on screen. Even in his final episodes, filmed while visibly thinner and weakened, he maintained that same peaceful tone. He passed away on July 4th, 1995. Independence Day, fitting perhaps for a man who freed so many people from the fear of failure, with nothing but a canvas and a brush. He left behind more than paintings. He left a movement, a mindset, a model of gentle strength. Today, you'll find Bob Ross on everything. From coffee mugs to board games, you'll find him trending on TikTok. You'll see artists using his name, style, and likeness across every medium. And yet the man himself, he never lived to see the explosion of his fame. Maybe that's why it feels so pure. His paintings weren't about showing off. They weren't about making millions or winning prizes. They were about joy, serenity, possibility. He told us we didn't need to be artists to paint, that we didn't need permission to express ourselves, that we could make mistakes and still create beauty. He reminded us that sometimes the most powerful thing you can be is kind. So the next time life feels overwhelming, imagine a quiet voice saying, "Let's just put a happy little tree right there." And maybe, just maybe, that'll be enough to make the day feel a little lighter. Subscribe to the Bold Fact Files channel, turn on the notifications, and you won't miss our new videos.